and welcome to BocaJS's weekly Lunch and Learn. Now, I know, Lunch and Learn is normally something that you do every lunch, or one particular lunch. Well, you will present to other people in your team, or your group, or your whole company, something that you know that could help them. So it's sharing the knowledge. And I'd like to share my knowledge with you on this event. What I'd like to share with you specifically today is how to fetch an API with Node.js. So here we will try to achieve a goal, in this case find the market cap of a particular set of companies, and we'll explain more about it in just a second. First, who am I? My name is Damian Montero. I'm one of the lead developers at a particular company. I've been doing this for about 20 years. That is my role, lead developer. Didn't mean to go into that detail, but now you know. 20 years experience doing JavaScript, doing backend, doing programming, doing web development. I also am the organizer of BocaJS, BocaJS.org. You will find more information about our monthly meetups where we get together first Tuesday of the month. We talk about different events, different speakers come and talk to us. Check out tomorrow or this Tuesday's event if you're seeing this live. Otherwise, do check out BocaJS.org for our next event. It's the first Tuesday of the month, every month. All right, let's get to what we were trying to do and what really got me excited. What I was excited about was the fact that let me start again. So what I was excited was that the fact that the top market cap of $1 trillion was being hit first by Apple, then Amazon, then Microsoft. And they seemed to be a race, and they would sort of hover, touch it, come back, hover, touch it, come back, hover, touch it, come back. And I was fascinated by this, and I wanted to figure out if there was a website similar to what you're looking at here, which is a website I built for this demo, for what we're going to be doing today. And we will be doing this. And essentially, if you don't know what this is, market cap is the valuation of a company. That is, if a company's stock is worth $10 for one stock, you can give them $10, they will give you one stock. And there is 1 million of those shares out there. The company has 1 million, whether they own it all and they give you one, or they own 50%, or whatever the case may be. If you add up all the stock, multiplied by the $10 that one stock would cost, then the market valuation of that company is $10 million. Sorry to get ahead of myself. Interesting. So if you grab up all the stocks of Apple during that time that went over $1 trillion, multiplied by all the stock available out there, whether it was owned by the company or not, as in shareholders or internal companies, divisions, whatever the case may be, you added them all up, you would find a 1 followed by 12 zeros. That's all our numbers. So, all right, let's Google that. Top companies by market cap. Here's some articles about it. And the most actual truthful as far as the latest information is actually Wikipedia. As crazy as that sounds. This has pretty much for 2019 the latest information, pretty close to what it is. Now the numbers are off compared to what you saw a second ago, which are up to date for today, Sunday, that we're recording this on the for the BocaJS Lunch and Learn. So I thought, that's unusual. All right, easy enough. Let's Google that. As a senior developer, I know what to Google. So I type in market cap, and I say top companies, API, nothing comes up like that. And I'm like, okay, well, we're going to get the information, stock market API for free, and see what happens. And we found one. Now, there's a couple of different ones in purple. That's not the one I chose. I chose one called iexcloud.io. Don't know anything about it. They're not paying me for this, but just seem to have everything we needed to. And like any APIs, we go down, we log in, we get some information. There's two things we need usually. It's a key. That's not unusual. And I'll reveal the key simply because of the fact that I'll be able to copy it, and we'll see it in a demo just a second ago. Now, before you go crazy and start writing down, you can do it on my bill. Don't worry, I will in a minute click on the regenerate, and that key will no longer be used. But here's the important things. I'm going to click on the docs here. Okay, I'm going to go and open up a new tab. And in the docs, they give you some information as with any kind of API key. They give you different information as far as cloud or the URL that you're going to be creating. And usually what they do is they'll give you, say, this is the URL, api.ourcompany.com or something like that. And then the rest of the documentation will refer / whatever. Right, so you expect them to be starting on this point and go / and whatever they explain to you. And I'll explain to you more about it. And also, you have to find out where your token goes in there in a header in part of the query string, as it is in this particular examples. Okay, so we're good to go. Don't get too confused with the fact that the URL there is different. We'll see what's going on there. Now, what I did find is one particular the information URL that it really found that gave me all the information. So we're looking for market cap. This was the particular one that I found. So it's slash stocks. So as you can see, as I mentioned before, you have here a URL, and you're like, well, what's the beginning part of that URL? What's the beginning of that website? And we looked at it in a second. So most of the time, it's this case. They will show you an example, perhaps, and this is common. They'll give you a way to click on it and utilize. You change information. You can see how your information changes. For example, here is the symbol, the Apple or the Amazon symbol for the stock, and then you would be able to get it. They tell you, in this case, how many times can you call it, what particular time can you call it, and other kind of information. And at the very bottom, very conveniently, they have an example. And more than just like, hey, you can do what we said above, you can right-click on it, open up a new tab, and you get exactly what we're looking for. Now, exactly what we're looking for, Damian, it says you didn't provide a key. All right, no problem. We copied the key a second ago. Let's go ahead and put it in there. And you'll see that that's what I did, and boom, there's our information. Now it's hard to read that, so I will go ahead and open up a new tab, go with my favorite JSON parser. You've seen other Lunch and Learns. I'm going to paste it on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, I have a more human-readable version, and there's the information we'll read it for. Now, here's a little bit of a trick here. As we looked in the API, you can also send some information about it. What's this information? You can actually send any one of these individually, and it will just come back with that. That is not a lot of information, but in some situations there is no way, but in this case they allow you to sort of narrow down the search. And we'll look at what I mean by that, by going and saying, okay, well, up here I'm going to add, just before the question mark and the information where a token goes to, the particular field I'm interested in, and that field alone gets come back in there. So I pressed enter there if you didn't see me. So this full URL is what we're looking for. So here, if we find in and we pass Apple, we'll get that. If we pass Amazon, if I get that symbol right, there's the market cap as far as this particular API at this exact second. Excellent. We got what we need. To utilize, to skip ahead a little bit, we're going to utilize we're going to find out the fact that we don't really have a way to check all the companies in the world, because remember, these are companies in the world that we saw a second ago. And we realized when we went to the list, I'll go back to the list, that the number 11th is way out from the number 10th. So I'm going to just simply use these 10, and either I could use maybe the top 20 as far as Wikipedia or some different websites. But you can see that the really carrying over the top, probably top 5, we can say. And so the top 5 seem to be so, incredibly distanced from each other that there's not going to be, no one in the 15th place will sort of swing into here and pop out of here. I can tell you that's the truth. So therefore, it's okay if we just go and get this 10, sort them by the stock price, and then that should be good for our call. So what I'll do is I'll start with a list like this, and we're going to eliminate WeChat only because of the fact that I love WeChat. It is the future, and latest Facebook announcement has said that they didn't really quite come out and say it, but they realized that all of a sudden Facebook was missing some wonderful new features, and surprisingly, it's the same features that WeChat has had for the longest time. But this particular API didn't have a way for me to make that call. So the symbol is from the Chinese stock market symbol 700. I guess they like their numbers instead of their letters. So let's continue on, since that's the case with this. We'll use the 5, the 9 that you see there, and we'll kind of ignore the WeChat. For our example, it will be fine. What I'm going to do is cheat a little bit. We're not cheating a little bit. A lot of times we want to go to our favorite repo. In this case, BocaJS.org has its own repo. Click on the one of the repos that we have there. This is a common for most senior developers, where you have a sort of a boilerplate where everything's kind of already ready. And we'll look at what exactly it is that we're ready. I'm clicking on the green button and going ahead and click on the copy of the URL. I'm going to go into my favorite code editor. Here I have a bunch of other methods that we've done in other other presentations, things like that. I'm going to go click Git clone, and you can see that on the right hand side there. We go ahead, oops, there, and we're cloning this particular Git, pardon me, and oh my. And we're copying down the information. If we go to the basic, as with any kind of, we'll see what is in there, and is a couple of different things that we'll go and explain in a minute. But before we explain it, most Node applications need their libraries and modules installed, the repository, the dependencies, if you will. And so npm I, for the case of Node, brings it all down. Pip will install will bring anything for Python, etc., etc. Let's look a little bit of the basics of this. This is pretty much two files that we're interested. One file that I'll go through in a second, which is the server, it's the backend, it's the intelligence. And the other one, which is their front end, and more specifically the front end with some intelligence of as far as a templating engine, so that you'll be able to do some code in JavaScript, but at least have the minimum amount of JavaScript. You don't have to give the front end developer or designer you don't have to give her exactly everything in JavaScript and say, somewhere within this node is the pieces that come together to make the particular web page. Forget about it. This templating engine will help them do it, and then the designer can take care of this part, and we can take care of the back end. That's kind of the concept of the sort of NVC model. In this case, this is the view. So enough about that. Let's start with our coding. So we need, as we talked about, our list of the top companies. I'm going to grab my code that I've already done for you, and I'm going to go ahead and put them in here. And perfect. We have now our list of our companies. I forgot the comma here in our example. In fact, let's get rid of 10 cent. It's not really needed at this moment for our example. So we have an engine. We have the information. We're going to go ahead and grab the companies, and we're going to go and say, oh, you know what? I would like to see the companies in here. So we're going to go and say, okay, this is going to be our final code. We can say it are going to be a variable. And this could say stocks. It's going to be an array. And for now, just for us to showcase what we're doing here, we're going to go and map. We're going to grab the companies, the variable we just brought in a second ago, map it, that is, go through it and loop and iterate through it, if you will. C will represent each one of them as I go one at a time. When I find one, in this case C, I'm going to go and say, stocks. We're going to push a new variable into you. It's going to be, in this case, a string, and it's going to be represented by the C. In this case, above, it's just simply an array of strings. Our companies now have the exact same information. This company's variable now needs to be sent over to the templating engine, the JSON, the HTML file. How do we do that? We can pass any kind of object represented by different properties. One of them will be a property. Later on in the JS, it will look like simply an object that was passed by, and I can do things about it. You'll see what I mean in just 1 second. Just bear with me here. So our code said the start express. We're using the EJS, my choice of a good templating engine. The start at port 80. At the very bottom, we had all the boilerplate that starts our engine. And in the middle, we said, hey, we want to have some intelligence when you hit the root, not the /about us, not the /home, not the /API, but the root of the website, www.mywebsite.com, to go and do the following code. So that's where we were a second ago. We create an array. We map through the existing array of list of companies, in this case strings. We simply, essentially, mock or duplicate the list by pushing what we had in one array to the other. Nothing fancy here. We grab that variable, shove it into a big, huge new object, which is going to be passed to the rendering engine. The object essentially grabs each one and separates them into its own object. We'll see it in a second. Talking about that, let's go in there. EJS. Okay, we're going to get rid of this code, and we're going to go ahead and say H1, and this is what we're going to do with it. Top companies by market cap. Whoop. We should match these H1s. And in here, we're just going to have a list. We're going to have an ordered list, LU, and we're going to close the ordered list. Okay, and inside here, we're going to go ahead and do some of the code. Now, this is what it looks like. We have the opportunity here to do some intelligence. If we just had a variable here, that would, for example, be the output, we could just simply paste them here. In fact, let's do that, and you'll see what it kind of looks like. I'm going to go ahead and switch to the browser. I'm going to switch to my local host. Oh, pardon me. I will need to start this. So here we are in our application. We're going to go node period, in which says node, look for any kind of packages. In this case, it knows already because of what package.json has said. You can look at it yourself. And it knows to start the server.js. Server.js knows how to do when you go to the root. So when we refresh the root, we have a nice list of arrays. It's been very kind in us. And even though it's an array and not something about it, it's gone through it with commas. Super, super awesome. So for debug purposing, it's awesome. But we want to do a little bit more sophisticated things in the moment. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to go through our object that we're coming in. We're going to do map. And we're going to do the same kind of a thing that we did a second ago. So for each one of the companies, I'm sorry, we did not, oh, yes, we did. I meant to pass I knew I had something off here. I meant to pass the stocks. So not the companies, because the stocks will represent sort of a companies that will be populated with the right information, a variable that will be populated with the right information in this situation. So getting back to what we did here, this is back to JavaScript, even though we're in the HTML. We grab the stocks, we're going to map through it. You know what we're doing here. We're going to go ahead. If we had map, we had to do something about it, we'd be done. So this templating engine doesn't really work this way. It doesn't have a way here to go and say sort of echo or print out or do something like that. So you can't really do it this way. So what you gotta do is something that looks a little bit strange, but that's okay. I'm gonna say, you know what? This is my start of my JavaScript. This is my end of my JavaScript. Inside here it's all HTML. Unfortunately, what is in here? Yeah, not unfortunately. What isn't here is an LI. Okay, this is good. We're going to finish the LI, and then we're going to put something in the middle. The information we put in the middle is the stock. So we're going to do the same kind of thing. Now we're back in the code. Unfortunately, this is what we need to do. And we're going to say, you know, that variable that C represents, go ahead and post that over here. And that's it. Let's refresh. And we get an error. Oh my. We have a little bit of an error. Let's go ahead and see what we did in here. We mapped it. We did stocks. We should be okay. Stocks is not defined. Okay. Of course. The reason why stocks is not defined. I did this on purpose. You think I was doing a mistake. All right. What we did is, if we do node again and we're like, let's start again, it worked. Why did it not work a second ago? If you look carefully, I did look like I look at a stapling, but all I really did is stop and start again. Let's stop and start again each time. Well, the node dot will start and run the program. The problem is it's kind of unaware if something changes in the backend. We have a third-party app that you can install by typing npm -g I node mon. I do have it installed, so I won't have to do this. And node mon, what it is it does the same thing as node, but the difference is the second that you go ahead and edit any of the pages in here, any of the files, and save it. Let's just do one more change here. Let's save it. It will restart the code. Okay. It should have restarted the code. Let's do this. Console log C. All right. As we were in here. Oh my. We're going to go in and change the code in here. We're going to do that. And the moment I saved it, good. It worked exactly as we talked about. The moment I saved it, it restarted it for me. So the problem I had a second ago where I was seeing an error was the fact that the code was ready, the front end was ready, and it was reading it each time. You can make live edits, but the server was not. So the second I saved the server, that circle went to an X, as in the file is being saved. It reloaded on there. So if we refresh, we truly have a list. Now we have a wonderful list and we're almost there. Remember, all we're trying to get is over here. So we're almost there. To get the numbers, actually, I just realized we have missing something a little bit that I wanted to like. We're going to not go OU, but we're going to go O. Now in HTML, all that means is that they're numbered. So if we refresh it, we have a number. Now that's not the true number. All that is a series of Excels of the list that we had originally. Let's really do some code to think about it. Now let's go back to our HTML, our API. Let's figure out where it is that the API comes from. This is the API, I've just copied it, that will give us the information. Now, I want to show you something in particular here. If I go to let me make this a little bit smaller here, because we don't really need to see too much of the debugging. If I go ahead and save this to this variable here, we're going to go and say const API URL 1. I'll show you why it's 1 in a second. And we're going to have the information. Now, if this is what we're going to be calling each and every single time, good, we're done. But there's a little bit more to it in here than that. Okay, what we're going to do doesn't seem to like these. Don't worry about the squiggly lines, in particularly when it comes to this Visual Studio has had some trouble with this code in the past. Getting back to the information, what we have. Whoops. Oh my! I guess we should be in no information. I'll leave that up a little bit later. Oh my! Pardon me. Anyways, what we have here is the fact that, getting back to my situation, I need to shove in here two different, a call in between this URL. If I could, if it was part of the query string, what stock we were calling, I could, in fact, put it in the end to get our information. But because of this, we have to sort of split it into two. So what I've done here, if you look carefully, is I've split the beginning and at the end. Now we could easily in JavaScript have put something unique in there and put a dot replace so that, you know, blah, 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 pound, 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 dollar, pound could be replaced by the stock symbol, and we could do it up there. But it's half a dozen was it? Half a dozen of one and 6 on the other. I'm going to use it this way. I'm going to go ahead and call. Now, one of the things we want to do here is we want to call an API. Now, if I do fetch here, if I do the fetch method, if I'm here and I'm like, okay, fetch, oh my, fetch. And we're going to do that in a second ago. We're going to grab the first URL. We're going to fetch plus the company, right? In this case, the C, plus the second URL. And we'll do something about it in a second. If I run this, though, the moment that this gets called, it doesn't really know what fetch is. And it seemed to have a okay time there, but it actually doesn't seem to, it won't know what to do at that moment. Okay? This particular method call, we won't have it anywhere else. So it's having a fine time with that, but trust me, it will have an issue to, what happened? Then, pardon me. Sorry about that, guys. I'm going to try to continue on because I think this is important. Here's the JSON call here, and I'm going to do the normal JSON call here. I just want to move a point here. We're supposed to parse the information, and here is the final call at this very moment where we have the data, and we're getting back the call, and where we can console the data, console dir the data. And we will, and this is to prove a point because we will notice that we have an error here. There is no fetch API at this moment. There is a fetch API. Maybe I'm wrong with Node. I'm pretty sure I'm right with Node. Anyways, we have to make this call and get this information back. And here's what the issue we have here. I'm almost sure that we have missing. What are we missing here? Okay. So Node should not have this. And in your situation, you may not have this working at all in your situation. Okay. We were getting a call here with the Node. Okay. So Node is not part of, I may be wrong. Let me Node version. I am at the version 11 and Node 11 fetch. As far as we've always been concerned, is Node does not have a fetch built in. Fetch. Of course, when Google tells you this page would have something, it does not. So we normally use the npm package fetch. Okay, We should have had an error at that moment. I'll find out more if this is something that's built in. Hallelujah. We can't wait. But normally there isn't any fetch built into that. Fetch is part of traditional JavaScript as far as you might think about. All the browsers have it, even older browsers, but in every single environment, model, desktop or mobile. But it is something that we normally need to install. It's a third-party library. We install everything with npm-i or install and npa and then the package manager, and then /save saves it for later use. We will then be able to utilize it here in our system. So I'm going to go ahead and add it to our code here. Anywhere will be fine as long as it's before we call it, before we add it. And then we're going to come back and get back our node. Now, nothing will have changed. Let's confirm that by going to our web pages. Wonderful. Nothing has changed. Good. So, of course, nothing has changed because we have done nothing about it. We have a valid URL, right? So we can go and say in console, and get this console here, console, log, and this is the URL we're calling. Okay, if I refresh the page, you'll be able to see that we have the call here to the URL, and it's a valid call. They're getting valid returns, and here's something very important. As you can see, the call happens afterwards. So what we're doing here is each one of the calls is right afterwards. The calls are made and it finishes, and then we get the page. You'll have to believe me with this, and then the calls return. And the reason why, of course, is asynchronous. Node is asynchronous just because JavaScript is asynchronous. All right. So what we have to do here is create something a little bit different. We're going to create stock promises. Now, a promise is what the then and all that runs. So what we do is we create a variable, and then we say the fetch is going to asynchronously go and get something, and then when it's ready, it's going to tell us what's going on here. So we're going to add to this array the fetch. Now, what it's going to look like in a second is that when this all happens, and I return the market cap of our variable, what's happening here is we are returning, it looks like we're like perfect. Well, this variable will have the market cap. It won't. What it will be having though is it will have the actual, let me go ahead and do this over here. We'll have an actual list of promises. Now the promise has to be resolved. In other words, everything has to finish before we can do this. And we do this with a promise all. Now, what that means is it's pretty much says, first it takes the variable, the array of promises. Again, these are not the results, but this is simply the array. And then with these arrays, we can do something about it, right? So we can go ahead and with the data, which is return, which is going to be an array of market caps. Okay, so here we are, our array of market caps, and with this in mind, we do this when the variable market caps comes back, and we can do something about it. And what we can do is you can grab these two events that normally would have happened instantly the second this happens. And again, because of asynchronous, it's going to happen way before all the calls are finished. This way, it says, wait until all the calls are finished. Once all the calls are finished, this actual variable, which is not the same variable as where we kept the promises and essentially the handling of all this work, this actual variable is what's actually happening in the stocks. This is going to be a list of the stocks. So if you look at it carefully, and when we refresh the page, we will have a list, unless we error out as we did. And this was not prepared, so this isn't as intelligent as it is. Market cap is not defined. Okay. So we have, where's market cap? Oh, duh. This is, sorry. This was, I meant to give it a name. So this was us returning it. when this fetch happens, when it's finished and getting the URL and it returns something, we represent this something by any variable. We happen to have returned it by the variable data and then simply return that variable. We will return it with the word market cap and simply return the variable. Okay. Now that we've corrected that error, we will go ahead and refresh, and we should have absolutely everything working as it is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, and that looks good, and it's not coming up. All right, so at this moment, we should be pretty good. So what's going on in here? Let's Google it. Promise all. We all have mistakes. I think I made one. We should be able to create an array. We should be able to create, call all the array of options, and then we're going to have the value, and we're simply going to do something with that value. So I've done everything correctly. Unfortunately, we're going to do a little bit of debugging live here. Let's see how good I am with this. So we're going to do console log yay. I'm going to refresh the page. I'm going to go to the front page of that page again. I'm going to refresh it and see we see a yay. We do not. So the actual call seems to be working correctly. We seem to be fetching everything correctly. We don't seem to have a console here. Here's the URL that we're hitting here. Okay, and then we're fetching everything, and then we're going to be returning everything. We're doing everything correctly. I have an example here where we do the exact same thing. Let's see what I did differently here. JSON, company map, promise all. How silly of me. I should have read more carefully the information here. There is a then. This is different than what we had there. So this is fine. This is going to be the way that we do. Whoops. We're going to put an extra bracket here. It wasn't a callback. It was a then. It was not a callback. It was a promise. Simply didn't think about it, right? The promise all should return promises. So let's look at that code. So it was simply a mistake as far as what we had concerned. Wonderful. We've actually gotten a reply. Now this matches each one of the companies, and we could collate them and do things like that, but we can do something a little bit better. Instead of returning the market cap, we have some information about it. We want to return some objects. This object could be a new object that says the stock name is C, and the actual market cap, as far as a property, would be the value that we're getting back here. So this guy will return back an object that looks a little bit more sophisticated. So let's see if I've done this correctly. Oh, silly me. Don't need that extra bracket. So we're going to have a hard time seeing it here, but let's see what we get here. It's an object of an object, and that's perfectly fine. What we've done is we've done nothing pretty well. We've created a promise. We've created companies. This object will return some information. Now, what it is it's on the EJS part. There's an issue, and I'll show you what it is in a second. We have an object that has a property called stock, which represents the stock's name. We have a property called market cap, and it represents the market cap in here. Let's go to the EJS. Instead of just saying C, which in this case is the sort of stock in here, let's change it to S, just because you'll see what I'm doing here. We'll go s.stock. Plus, in other words, in JavaScript, spit this out, s.marketCap. Okay, so let's see if we got that correctly. We do. It looks amazing. Each one of them is amazing, but wait a minute. Microsoft should be higher than these guys, and this guy should be at the bottom. Well, it looks about right, but these are a little bit off in order. What can we do to do that? We're almost there. So we have the code. We just need to order in the right time. So that's pretty easy. We're going to go ahead and grab it and say, okay, just before we pass it onto it, we're going to go like this. We're going to go, this variable is equal to a sorted version of this variable. So sort works a little bit easy. You just simply say this. There's a million copies of this everywhere, but it's saying when it comes to, essentially it's bubble sort. So it's going to go one by one, and you're telling it the rules by which it's sorting by. Because if it was a number of variables or strings that you wanted to sort alphabetically, you would just go sort open bracket, close bracket, something similar to this. Right? And we'd be done. But we don't know about it. This can't really guess that the number is what you want to sort by, not by the stock name. And that could be valid, right? I may need to sort by the stock name, but not by the price. So in this case, we need to do that. So we need to give it some rules. So a, comma, b, in other words, the first and the second variable, and it needs to make a choice. And the choice is going to be something as far as, when it comes to a's market cap, in other words, when it comes to the one object's first market cap, if it is less than b market cap, then, if this is true, then return a 1. Otherwise, -1. In other words, go the other way. Don't worry too much about it. This is going to be a boilerplate sort that you will see a million times. What we've changed here, what you have highlighted here from every other example you've ever seen, is the fact that I've told it which field in this way is market cap. Let's go ahead and save that. I'm going to refresh, and you'll see that correctly Microsoft at this moment gets risen up to the top. Now, I'm not an Apple basher. Heck, I'm on an Apple right now. I do work for Windows, and I have my personal laptop, which is Linux. This is one that I do for presentations, but I like them all. But as far as numbers, there's no such thing as real numbers, except for real numbers, pardon me. So, that things bother me. That numbers bother me. So JavaScript to local number. Now, again, my senior part of it knows that I don't have to Google as far as what to do, but this particular one will give you some details about what's going on in here. So if I go over here, and again, we kind of have a little bit of JavaScript. It isn't like the otother templating engines in C#, like Razor, that we don't have that much we can do. In this case, we do. So if we refresh it, we have now some beautiful numbers. Let's correct that and realize that this is in American US dollars, or at least this little symbol, as we've seen before by doing Shift 4 on my particular keyboard. And we have some almost there. We're just so close. So we have a little bit of something I want to share with you. I have one particular love for a little bit stylish CSS, and this water.css under this KOGNISC has been just wonderful for me. So I'm going to cheat a little bit and just shove it up here just for instant gratifications and make it look a little bit nicer. Boom. Doesn't it look a little bit nicer? Wonderful. We're almost there. There is one thing that we could improve upon, and this is something very, very easy. Each and every single time we call this, we utilize 10, in this case 9, of our 6,000 calls a month. And that's a problem. Because if I really want to release this live, it's going to be a big of a detail. Here's one thing that I don't know if you really realized. Node has a single thread. It's a singleton application, even though it looks like there's a million people hitting it and they each get their different results, and there's never going to be a confusion or things like that. So one of the things we could do is we could just have a cache version of this. So we can go and say const and put a stock. And this is our stock market, and it will represent this variable here, and so we are, this variable here. This is an array of objects, and we will simply overwrite the one that we have here. So we will leave it for later, okay? And we will do something. We have to do something a little bit different, or else we're going to overwrite this here. We're going to say that this variable it represents here, and we're simply going to go and say this market cap is a reply. Okay? And you'll see what I mean in a minute. This is a valid thing. And what we're doing is we're overriding the existing array. Now, you've seen nothing. Nothing will change here unless we've committed an error. And we have. And I did const. Pardon me. That was my problem. And again, we refresh it. And we will all day long do it fine. And each and every single time we'll call that URL. That's a problem. So we're going to go and we can, you have to trust me that this variable gets overwritten each time. Now, why am I overriding it? Because we could go and say, you know what? Let's Google right now that we're doing that. We will, if we're in here, we can go and say call log, calling API. All right. And we can say that each and every single time that this is the API that's being called. I'll copy that, or I'll simply paste it in here. And we will look and see that each time we refresh, we have another call. As you can see, I'm going to refresh over here, hit the refresh button. I'm going to go back, and there's a new call each time. And now we can go and say, okay, well, you know what? We can say let now equals new date that. So that's what the now terms. Now this variable is called on the first time that this application is initiated. So the moment I click save, now has now's minute. Well, it's a couple of seconds ago, now a minute, if you understand. So now we can go and say, if we're going to go and say, okay, well, we've just been called. Has 30 seconds passed? So we can say if, we can go and say, what's the exact time of the new now? So we can go right now. So right now is new date time. So at this moment is when the call to the root has happened. That first one at the very, very top here will be happen when the application is started. This one is when the exact same now. So now we can do comparisons. Well, how do we do this? First of all, we can go and say, you know what? I don't care what time has passed if this is blank. So if length dot blank length is bigger equals 0, then we're okay. Let's go in there. Well, if it's not 0, if we don't have anything here, we're going to go in there. So, or we're going to go ahead and say, has it passed time? So how much time has passed? So let's go this const. We can also do const here, const. And we're going to say time passed in seconds. Okay, so time passed in seconds is going to be the original one, the now, or app start. Well, now, and you'll see what, or last time app. Let's just leave it as now. You'll see why I'm having a hard time naming this in just 1 second. We're going to go ahead and say if time pass equals time, time dot get time. You can get that from the variable time minus right now dot get time. Okay, so this is the exact number of milliseconds between that. So let result in minutes equals math round. I am cheating over here. The difference, so time passed in milliseconds. Okay, and we're going to do that divided by 1,000. Okay, so now at this moment we have the number of seconds that has passed between the time when we do this and this time right now, and we'll see it when we're doing that. Okay, we're going to do it there is going to say if 50 is to 30 seconds. So notice that's 30 seconds passed. If 30 seconds have passed, what we need to do is this number that we're doing the comparison with, we need to update it. Okay, and this number we need to go ahead and say, well, we're going to start all this code, but we have to go and say equals new date. Okay, so this number, so this code gets run, only all this code gets run, and that's the case. So this means that this has run. Else, we should do something else, which is just doing the basics. In other words, grab the existing variable that we have up here, which, again, if it's blank, will be called. So if the length is 0, go into this code. But if we have a version of it, instead if you have a cached version of it, then don't get called. And what we'll do here is we'll say console log use cache. Okay? So if you caught what I did there, we'll look at it together here. We'll see if we can put it one at a time here. But we'll go ahead and we'll try to run it here sort of in between there so we can see both sides of it. I will go ahead and try to get the HTML. Let me see if I can collapse it here. Okay. And okay, so that's the log on the left-hand side, the code on the right-hand side. And I will refresh the code and see that we made the call. We have all the code. Now we're going to refresh it again, and we're going to use the cache. So here we go. And we will see that in a couple of seconds, once 30 seconds have passed, I should have done something, we're 10 for this presentation, then we'll see all of a sudden the call is being called one more time. So if you're getting it, you will see that on the left-hand side, it'll stop you saying use cache. I guess it should have said used cache. And in about 30 seconds worth of time, I'm trying to stall here, so if you haven't realized that, then you'll see that that the call will be made. If it's not, it's either not past 30 seconds or I've made sort of a typo as far as a mistake as far as the direction of this. So this one now should have been, that's fine. Let's see now. I doubt what it was. These two were backwards. So very good. And that should have given me the hint to know that. I will refresh this page. You can see on the left-hand side, this says run. We can see that it's now running in the cache. We can refresh it. And you will see in about 30 seconds, again, I should have done it to 10 seconds. The first time it gets populated, so on the right-hand side, it is the valid numbers. And then once 30 seconds have passed, again, I'm trying to, it's unbelievable. It's like brushing teeth. Whenever you count and you expect 30 seconds to be a short amount of time, it hasn't. So I'm going to refresh one more time and see the 30 seconds have cached, and there it is. Now, this doesn't change that often. You may be okay with 5-minute times. You may be able to tell the information that 5 minutes of time. So we've utilized the fact that although Node looks like it runs individually for each other, although Node, it's perfectly fine to understand that no variables, this variable won't get confused because it was created in another thread that happened at the exact same time. They're completely separate. Two users at the exact same time or a millisecond off hitting the server will get completely different results of anything that they do within the starting of their package, within this quote and the bottom of this, but they all share this cache. So this is a cheap way of doing caching, and hopefully something that you've enjoyed watching me do, because this code is over. I hope to see you at the next Lunch and Learn. Hope you learned something about it. Let me know if you haven't down on the code, down in the comments. Do leave your suggestions on BocaJS's channel, on BocaJS's Slack, on Palm Beach Tech, on any which way. Next time you see me, let me know what you want to hear about, because I want to teach you the next Lunch and Learn. Or maybe it's time for you to teach me.